Bearings. Bearings are the little round spinny things that make it possible for your wheels to spin, for your swing arm to swing, and for your steering column to steer. When bearings get rusty or loose, all these things start moving in directions they were not supposed to, and your motorcycle begins to feel more like an accordion than like something that is performant and safe. If you let these problems drag on for too long, the bearing can end up collapsing entirely, and then... So it seems that bearings are kind of a big deal, and surprisingly nobody seems to spare a thought about them. And so much so that every single used bike I ever bought had at least one of its bearings shot. Why? Hello adventurers, my name is Diogo Guerra and this is OFFroad-OFFcourse. There are two main reasons why riders ride around with bad bearings on their bikes. First, because bearings don't last forever, especially on motorcycles that do a lot of off-road. And second, because bearings usually deteriorate slowly, so the riders have time to get used to their bike feeling progressively more like a slinky, and so despite all the evident symptoms, they usually don't realize they have a problem, until it is too late. It's more or less like having a slightly bent handlebar. Most owners will not be aware of it until someone else sits on their bike, immediately notices it and tells them, forever ruining their blissful ignorance. Because of all this, what happens is that bad bearings end up staying on motorcycles for longer than they should. Usually until we happen to stumble upon a caring mechanic that will actually check and replace them. And not all do, or at least not that often. Well, anyway, for you to be the master of your own destiny, let me teach you a few tricks for you to test your own bike. So, a very common symptom of having bad wheel bearings or steering head bearings is when you can feel the white paint on the road. Usually the paint is like 2 or 3 millimeters thick, which is not a lot, of course, but if you have a bad wheel bearing, when you cross the lines like this, you may feel the motorcycle kind of reacting, like the thing is much taller. It's more or less the feeling you would get if you ran over a hose. So yeah, if you can feel the paint on the road, there's definitely something wrong with your bike. And the bearings usually are my first suspect. It doesn't matter how crappy your motorcycle is. You are obviously not supposed to feel the white paint on the road. And although this test is somewhat fun, it is a bit insufficient because it will only detect advanced stages of bearing degradation. And it will only allow you to test a few of them. So I suggest we pay a visit to John here in his garage and ask a few extra tips about how to test bearings. To test the wheel bearings, simply lift the bike off the ground and use both hands to try to move them laterally. Do it in a couple of different positions. If you feel any sort of movement, like a clicky feeling, your bearings are gone. You can also rotate the front wheel and look for any misalignments or noises, another sign of deterioration. To test the linkage, try to move the swing arm up and down. If you can feel a gap down there, probably you have a problem. For the swing arm itself, move it laterally. And to better detect possible small unwanted movements, you can put your finger between the frame and the arm. There are two tests for the steering bearings. First, move the steering from side to side, trying to feel small notches or bumps that affect the smooth motion of the handlebar. Usually the notch will be right in the middle. Also make sure all the cables are loose and not interfering with your test. The second test is to try to rock the suspensions back and forth. If you feel any gap, either your steering wheel head nut is too loose or your bearings are gone. And this is it, guys, the most simple way of testing your bike without needing to take anything apart. I hope you found this video useful, and if so, please don't forget to like, to subscribe, to hit the thingy and to share. See you next week and happy rides!